Audie Murphy is the most decorated soldier in the history of the United States. His recognitions include the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, and high honors from France and Belgium. Staff Sergeant Dion Moses has more.
After Audie Murphy died, the stories people once dismissed as gossip suddenly became impossible to ignore. America remembered a fearless war hero, but behind closed doors, whispers of violent nightmares, loaded guns, emotional breakdowns, and hidden desperation refused to disappear. For years, his wife Pamela Archer Murphy stayed silent while reporters, veterans, and insiders argued over what was happening inside their home. Then, after his death, she finally started confirming rumors herself. But was she revealing the truth or exposing secrets America wanted buried forever for decades? Whispers followed America's greatest hero. When news broke that Audie Murphy had died in a plane crash near Virginia, America reacted with shock. Newspapers rushed to honor the fearless soldier who had survived some of the deadliest battles of the Second World War, only to lose his life at 46 during a private business trip. Television reports focused on his medals, his Hollywood career, and the image that had followed him for decades. To the public, Murphy still represented courage, discipline, and patriotism. But almost immediately after the funeral coverage began, another conversation quietly returned from the shadows. For years, rumors about Murphy's private struggles had circulated behind closed doors in Hollywood, among veterans, and even inside military circles. Most people ignored them because they conflicted with the image America preferred to protect. Stories described terrifying nightmares, sudden bursts of anger, loaded guns beside his bed, and emotional breakdowns hidden from cameras. Some believed the pressure of war had damaged him far more deeply than anyone realized. Others insisted the stories were exaggerated gossip, spread by people trying to tear down a national hero. Yet after his death, those whispers no longer disappeared so easily. At the center of the growing curiosity stood his wife, Pamela Archer Murphy. During Audie Murphy's lifetime, she rarely spoke publicly about their private life. She attended events beside him, supported his career, and helped maintain the calm image many Americans wanted to believe. Even when stories surfaced about his temper or emotional instability, Pamela avoided fueling public controversy. That silence now attracted even more attention. Reporters began questioning whether she had spent years protecting secrets too painful or dangerous to reveal while he was alive. The timing made everything feel even more unsettling. Murphy had not died as a forgotten former soldier struggling alone. He remained one of the most recognized war heroes in America, and his death transformed him instantly into something even larger. Politicians praised him. Veterans mourned him. Admirers remembered the decorated fighter who stood against enemy forces almost alone during the war. Yet beneath those public tributes, darker questions kept resurfacing. Why had so many people privately described a completely different man from the one celebrated on television? As journalists revisited Murphy's later years, stories about insomnia, emotional strain, and unpredictable behavior spread with renewed force. Some accounts painted him as a man haunted by memories he could never escape. Others viewed him as unstable and increasingly overwhelmed by pressure, fame, and fear. Pamela refused early interview requests, which only deepened public fascination. Her silence seemed to suggest either fierce loyalty or painful knowledge. The more the public searched for answers, the more complicated Audie Murphy's story became. His death had not buried the rumors surrounding him. Instead, it reopened them, forcing people to question whether a private war had never truly ended at home. Why did Pamela suddenly disappear from public view after the funeral? Which stories terrified Hollywood insiders most? And what hidden struggles had Audie Murphy spent years desperately trying to conceal from the world before everything finally began unraveling behind closed doors forever? Let's find out. Behind closed doors, war remained. To the public, Audie Murphy looked like a man who had survived everything. He was America's celebrated war hero, a decorated soldier who became a Hollywood star after returning from the Second World War. Photographs showed him smiling beside his wife, Pamela Archer Murphy. During movie premieres and public appearances, their family appeared calm, respectable, and successful. But inside their home, the atmosphere often felt very different. According to people close to the family, the war followed Murphy long after the battlefield disappeared. Pamela gradually learned that nights were often the worst. Murphy struggled with terrifying dreams that pulled him back into combat while he slept. Sometimes he woke suddenly in panic, unable to separate memory from reality. He kept loaded guns close to him even at home because he never truly felt safe. Friends later claimed he constantly seemed alert, tense, and emotionally exhausted, as though danger could appear at any moment. The behavior unsettled people around him, but few openly challenged him because of who he was. As the years passed, Murphy's emotional swings reportedly became harder to predict. Some days he appeared calm and thoughtful. Other days, anger surfaced quickly and without warning. Pamela often found herself trying to keep peace inside the house while also protecting their children from moments that felt frightening or unstable. The pressure quietly transformed everyday life into something uncertain. Behind closed doors, the image of the fearless American hero slowly collided with the emotional damage he carried home from war. Hollywood insiders also began noticing signs that something was wrong. Co-workers and friends privately described Murphy as restless, moody, and deeply troubled beneath his polished public image. Rumors spread quietly through social circles about arguments, emotional outbursts, and behavior that made people uncomfortable. Yet very little reached the public at the time. Many believed his military reputation protected him from serious scrutiny. Others felt sympathy, believing the trauma of combat had permanently changed him in ways most civilians could never understand. Throughout all of it, Pamela rarely spoke publicly about what happened inside their home. Instead, she continued appearing beside him at events, helping preserve the image people expected to see. Some later suspected she intentionally downplayed troubling incidents to protect Murphy's career and reputation. Others believed she remained silent because she understood how emotionally broken he truly was. Either way, her silence became part of the mystery surrounding their marriage. Even those closest to the couple seemed unsure where admiration ended and fear began. Murphy remained with the emotional scars of war that appeared impossible to escape. Pamela understood that reality better than anyone, and eventually the rumors surrounding him would become impossible to contain. What was Pamela desperately trying to hide from the public? And why did those closest to Murphy suddenly grow uneasy around him? Were the terrifying episodes merely war trauma, or signs of something darker quietly unfolding inside their home? Stay with us. Silence protected America's perfect hero. As rumors surrounding Audie Murphy quietly spread through Hollywood and veteran circles, many people wondered why Pamela Archer Murphy never publicly challenged them. Stories about sleepless nights, emotional instability, loaded weapons, and frightening mood swings continued appearing behind closed doors, yet very little reached newspapers during his lifetime. To outsiders, her silence looked mysterious. Some believed she was hiding the truth. Others believed she was protecting a man already carrying more pain than most people could understand. Whatever the reason, Pamela understood something many Americans refused to accept during the 1950s and 1960s. The country did not want damaged heroes. It wanted legends. By that time, Murphy was far more than a former soldier. He had become a national symbol. His military record during World War II made him one of the most admired men in America, and Hollywood transformed that reputation into fame. Audiences watched him play strong, fearless characters on screen, while magazines praised his bravery and discipline. For millions of Americans, Murphy represented courage itself. Publicly exposing his private struggles would have shattered an image the country seemed desperate to preserve after the trauma of war. The timing also mattered. During those years, psychological trauma was rarely discussed openly. Terms like post-traumatic stress disorder were not commonly used, and emotional suffering among veterans was often misunderstood or ignored completely. Men struggling after combat were expected to remain silent, control themselves, and continue living normally. Admitting emotional instability could destroy careers, relationships, and public reputations. Pamela likely understood that reality every day she lived beside Murphy. Speaking openly about his nightmares or emotional breakdowns may have brought sympathy from some people, but it also risked humiliation, public judgment, and serious damage to his carefully protected image. Veterans also played an important role in protecting Murphy's reputation. Many former soldiers respected him deeply, not only because of his medals, but because they believed he represented their shared sacrifices during the war. Some understood his behavior better than civilians ever could. They recognized signs of trauma, even if they rarely spoke about it publicly. To them, exposing Murphy's private battles may have felt like betraying one of their own. At the same time, Pamela slowly realized something deeply unsettling. The public seemed interested only in the heroic version of Audie Murphy. Few people wanted to hear about fear, instability, or emotional scars that never healed. America celebrated the decorated soldier standing proudly in uniform, not the exhausted man struggling privately at home. That painful divide likely trapped Pamela between loyalty and survival for years. Her silence protected Murphy's reputation, but it also protected the illusion surrounding him. And that illusion was becoming harder to maintain with every passing year. Even after reporters began asking difficult questions, Pamela continued standing beside him in public, smiling for cameras while avoiding deeper explanations. That decision later fueled suspicion that she knew more than she admitted. Yet it also revealed the pressure surrounding anyone forced to protect a hero. Why did Pamela protect a secret that slowly destroyed her? Who inside Murphy's circle helped keep the silence alive? And when the pressure finally became unbearable, what shocking moment convinced her the truth could no longer stay buried beneath America's carefully protected war hero legend forever? Keep watching. Fame could not save him. By the late 1950s, the carefully controlled image surrounding Audie Murphy was beginning to weaken. On movie screens, he still appeared calm, fearless, and dependable. The same decorated war hero Americans admired after World War II. Studios continued casting him in westerns and action films, while fans saw him as living proof that courage and discipline could survive even the darkest battles. But away from cameras and public appearances, pressure was building around him faster than most people realized. Murphy had spent years carrying memories of combat while trying to satisfy Hollywood expectations. Every interview pulled him back toward stories of war, bravery, and survival. Audiences wanted the legendary soldier they remembered from newspapers and military headlines, not the exhausted man struggling privately with insomnia, emotional strain, and fear. Friends later claimed he rarely seemed fully relaxed. Even during successful years in Hollywood, there were signs that something inside him remained unsettled. At the same time, financial problems quietly began growing. Murphy became heavily involved in horse racing and risky business investments that drained large amounts of money. He also lost a reported $260,000 in an Algerian oil deal, creating even more pressure behind the scenes. Gambling losses and unpaid taxes worsened the situation, leaving him trapped between maintaining his public image and dealing with growing financial instability. Yet very few fans understood how serious the problems had become. The emotional pressure also affected his relationships inside Hollywood. Some colleagues reportedly found him difficult to work with because of his sudden mood changes and fierce temper. While many still respected him deeply, others quietly noticed how quickly frustration could surface around him. Rumors spread about arguments, emotional exhaustion, and behavior that became harder to ignore as the years passed. To some people, Murphy appeared like a man trying desperately to outrun memories that refused to release him. His struggles with sleep and dependency added even more tension to his private life. Murphy admitted becoming dependent on sleeping medication after years of trying to escape recurring nightmares connected to the war. Although he eventually isolated himself in a hotel room to break the addiction, the deeper emotional wounds never fully disappeared. Publicly, he continued smiling for interviews and appearing as the confident hero America expected. Privately, however, the pressure seemed to be pulling him apart piece by piece. For Pamela Murphy, the changes unfolding around her husband likely became impossible to ignore. The man celebrated across America still existed, but another version of Audie Murphy was slowly emerging behind closed doors. As his financial troubles deepened and his emotional control weakened, the distance between the public legend and private reality continued growing, raising disturbing questions about how much longer that carefully protected image could survive. People close to him reacted differently. Some saw invisible wounds from war, while others feared his instability was dangerous. Either way, the cracks were no longer hidden, and rumors surrounding his life were impossible to dismiss publicly. With his public image still shining, something far more unstable was unfolding behind closed doors. How far had the losses gone? Was Hollywood witnessing a breakdown it refused to acknowledge? And who would step in when the hero could no longer hold himself together? Let's unravel the details. Hollywood knew more than admitted. As Audie Murphy continued building his Hollywood career, the rumors surrounding his private behavior no longer stayed confined to his home. Quiet conversations about his emotional instability began spreading through movie sets, private parties, and military circles. Publicly, Murphy still carried the image of America's fearless war hero. But behind that reputation, more people were starting to notice signs of serious emotional strain. What disturbed many insiders was not simply his anger or mood swings, but how unpredictable those moments sometimes appeared. Several people who worked around Murphy reportedly described an atmosphere that could shift suddenly without warning. Some days, he seemed calm, professional, and deeply respectful. Other days, tension followed him into conversations and work environments. Friends and co-stars quietly noticed how quickly frustration could rise in him, especially when pressure increased. Because of his legendary military status after World War II, many people hesitated to confront him directly. Instead, concerns often remained hidden behind private conversations and nervous speculation. Stories involving weapons created even deeper unease. Murphy's habit of keeping guns nearby became widely known among some people close to him, especially those who visited his home or spent time around him socially. Combined with reports of nightmares and emotional instability, those stories fueled growing concern inside Hollywood circles. Yet very little became public during those years. Some insiders later suggested that people deliberately avoided discussing the situation openly because Murphy's image remained too valuable to damage. Movie studios also had strong reasons to protect him. Murphy was not simply another actor struggling privately. He represented patriotism, military courage, and American strength during a period when audiences admired war heroes deeply. His films depended heavily on that reputation. Public scandals involving emotional instability or dangerous behavior could have threatened both his career and the studio's investing money in him. Because of that, many difficult situations reportedly stayed behind closed doors, managed quietly rather than exposed publicly. At the same time, people close to Murphy faced a painful conflict between loyalty and concern. Some friends believed he deserved understanding because combat trauma had clearly changed him forever. Others worried his emotional state was becoming increasingly dangerous. That uncertainty created an uncomfortable silence around him. Few people wanted to betray a decorated soldier they respected, yet many privately recognized that Murphy was struggling in ways far more serious than the public understood. For Pamela Archer Murphy, the isolation slowly deepened. As rumors spread privately, she remained trapped between protecting her husband and managing the growing emotional pressure surrounding their lives. Publicly, she continued standing beside him during appearances and interviews, helping preserve the calm image America expected to see. Privately, however, the distance between that image and reality appeared to grow larger every year. The most unsettling part was not that rumors existed. It was how many people seemed aware of them while choosing silence instead. By then, Murphy's struggles were no longer hidden from everyone around him. They had become an open secret quietly circulating through Hollywood, protected by loyalty, fear, admiration, and the uncomfortable truth that America rarely wanted its heroes to appear human at all anymore. What did Hollywood really hear behind closed doors? And why were studio executives so desperate to contain it? How deep did the fear run among those who worked closest to Murphy? And who decided to stay silent while everything was escalating? Stay glued. Pressure finally started breaking everything. By the late 1960s, pressure around Audie Murphy was becoming increasingly difficult to conceal. For years, he had balanced the image of a decorated war hero with the demands of Hollywood. But now the strain was showing publicly. Behind the familiar smile and confident interviews was a man burdened by financial collapse, emotional exhaustion, and memories of war that never truly faded. As his private struggles deepened, his public life began to fracture in visible ways. Money had become his most pressing problem. Although widely assumed to be financially secure from film success, Murphy's investments were failing. He poured money into horse racing ventures and risky business deals that repeatedly collapsed. A particularly devastating loss came from an Algerian oil investment, reportedly costing him around $260,000. At the same time, he faced mounting pressure from the Internal Revenue Service over unpaid taxes. The combination created severe stress, compounding his fragile emotional condition. Friends later described him as increasingly tense and restless. Anxiety and paranoia began to surface more frequently in his behavior. Once known for composure under battlefield pressure, he now appeared emotionally drained and volatile. The psychological weight of surviving the Second World War seemed to resurface in new forms, turning everyday life into another invisible battlefield without resolution or relief. In May 1970, Murphy's troubles became public when he was arrested in Burbank following a confrontation involving a dog trainer. He was accused of assault and firing a shot during the dispute, though he denied the allegations and was later cleared. Even so, the incident damaged his carefully maintained public image and pushed rumors of instability into mainstream attention. The controversy intensified debate about his mental state. Some viewed him as a proud man, overwhelmed by financial and emotional pressure, while others believed untreated wartime trauma was breaking through. Public opinion split between admiration and concern as questions grew about how long his heroic reputation could withstand scrutiny. For Pamela Murphy, the situation became increasingly unstable and difficult to contain. Legal troubles, debt, and emotional strain surrounded her husband, making his private life increasingly fragile. Yet Murphy continued appearing in public, carrying the expectations placed on him by a nation that saw him as a symbol of courage. Ultimately, the tragedy lay in contrast between image and reality. Outwardly, he remained a celebrated war hero, but inwardly he was fighting a far more personal battle that courage alone could no longer control. How did a decorated hero end up trapped between crushing debt, mounting pressure, and a collapsing public image? What really pushed him past the breaking point? Financial ruin, personal demons, or something far more hidden? And why did the walls begin closing in suddenly now? Stay tuned. The day everything finally collapsed. On May 28, 1971, the carefully constructed image of Audie Murphy collapsed in an instant. The highly decorated World War II hero and Hollywood actor boarded a private plane near Roanoke in severe weather while traveling to inspect a manufacturing plant tied to a potential investment. Heavy rain, thick fog, and near-zero visibility engulfed the flight. The aircraft soon crashed into a mountainside, killing everyone on board. Murphy was just 46. The tragedy stunned the nation and instantly transformed him from a troubled celebrity into a fallen American legend. Within hours, newspapers across the United States shifted focus to his extraordinary wartime record and his later Hollywood career. Tributes poured in, praising courage, patriotism, and sacrifice. Television broadcasts replayed images of the young soldier who had survived brutal combat only to die decades later in an unexpected accident. Military leaders, politicians, and fans honored him as one of America's greatest heroes. At Arlington National Cemetery, his funeral was conducted with full military honors, drawing prominent figures who came to pay final respects. To the public, the narrative seemed clear. A national hero had been lost. Yet beneath the national mourning, unresolved questions lingered. Long-standing rumors that had followed Murphy throughout his life did not disappear with his death. Instead, they became harder to ignore. Stories of emotional instability, recurring nightmares, financial strain, and unpredictable behavior continued circulating quietly. Some journalists wondered privately whether the public ever truly understood the man behind the uniform, while others avoided the subject entirely, believing it inappropriate to question a war hero so soon after his death. For Pamela Archer Murphy, grief was compounded by overwhelming pressure. She was left not only with emotional loss, but also financial difficulties and a lifetime of private struggles suddenly exposed to public curiosity. Reporters sought answers, veterans defended Murphy's legacy, and Hollywood insiders revisited long-suppressed stories. Pamela found herself at the center of a storm she had tried to keep contained. Her silence only deepened speculation. Some saw loyalty in her refusal to speak. Others believed she was protecting deeper truths. As public pressure grew, the line between heroism and hidden suffering blurred further. Murphy's death had ended his life, but it had also reopened every unanswered question about the man America thought it knew, leaving Pamela to carry the weight of what could be revealed. With Murphy gone, the story shifted into something far darker beneath the headlines. What really caused the crash? And why did silence spread so quickly? And what truths was Pamela suddenly forced to carry alone, while the world only saw a hero's final honor now? Truth emerged after years silent. Years after Audie Murphy's death, the silence around his private struggles slowly began to break. For decades, America celebrated him as a fearless war hero who survived World War II and later became a respected Hollywood actor. His public image remained almost untouchable, even after his fatal 1971 plane crash. Tributes continued to highlight courage, patriotism, and strength. Yet behind these honors, questions about his emotional suffering never fully disappeared. Over time, Pamela Archer Murphy began acknowledging that many rumors once dismissed were closer to the painful truth. Pamela never sought to destroy his legacy. Much of what she later shared came from sympathy rather than anger. She understood how deeply war had affected him. Those close to the family said Murphy carried emotional scars that never healed after combat. Nightmares, fear, sudden mood changes, and constant tension inside their home were not temporary struggles. Pamela eventually admitted that the war never truly left him. And even during his Hollywood success, part of him remained trapped in wartime memory. This quiet confirmation changed public perception. During the 1950s and 1960s, emotional trauma among veterans was rarely discussed, especially regarding admired figures like Murphy. Many Americans preferred believing heroes returned from war unchanged. Pamela's remarks challenged that comforting idea. Instead of a flawless symbol of bravery, Murphy appeared as a man still fighting invisible battles long after combat ended. At the same time, Pamela defended him against claims that reduced him to instability or danger. She acknowledged his struggles, but refused to define him by them. In her view, his condition stemmed from trauma, pressure, and painful memories he could not escape. That distinction resonated with veterans who recognized their own suffering in his story, tightly related to the fear, isolation, and emotional exhaustion she described. As reflection on his life grew, public opinion became more complex. The celebrated hero remained, but another image of Murphy emerged, one shaped by vulnerability and unseen wounds. He was no longer only an untouchable icon, but also a man marked by experiences few truly understood while he was alive. For Pamela, speaking about these truths revealed the heavy cost of war and the burden placed on public heroes. Her words forced people to question whether America protected an image while ignoring suffering beneath it. Once that reality surfaced, the rumors no longer felt like gossip. The legend endured, but the man beneath became visible. How deep did the truth really go beneath the legend everyone believed? What did Pamela witness that others refused to see, and why did she wait so long to reveal it? And once these revelations surfaced, who stood to lose everything they built around him? Her loyalty outlived the legend. After Audie Murphy died in the plane crash near Roanoke, Virginia, public attention focused almost entirely on the loss of an American hero. Newspapers praised his military courage during World War II, television stations replayed stories about his battlefield bravery, and Hollywood remembered him as a respected actor whose life seemed larger than ordinary men. But once the funeral ended and the public mourning slowly faded, another reality emerged behind closed doors. His wife, Pamela Murphy, was left carrying the emotional and financial wreckage hidden beneath his famous image. Many people assumed Murphy's success in films had left his family secure. Instead, Pamela discovered how serious his financial troubles had become. Debts connected to failed business investments, horse racing losses, and tax pressure remained after his death. The burden forced her to leave the large home they once lived in and move into a smaller apartment. While the public celebrated Audie Murphy as a legend, Pamela faced the painful reality of rebuilding a life surrounded by obligations he never managed to escape. Rather than retreat from the situation, Pamela quietly accepted responsibility for the problems left behind. It reportedly took her nearly 10 years to repay the debts connected to Murphy's name. People close to the family later described her determination as deeply personal. She refused to allow anyone to accuse Audie Murphy of abandoning responsibilities or failing to honor agreements. Even after everything she endured privately, loyalty continued guiding her decisions long after his death. Pamela's life changed even further when she began working at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Los Angeles. What started as a simple job slowly became something much more meaningful. Day after day, she helped veterans struggling with emotional pain, confusion, and neglect. Many recognized her immediately as Audie Murphy's widow, but over time, their respect shifted toward Pamela herself. Former soldiers approached her emotionally, sometimes asking only for a hug or a few comforting words. She listened to them, defended them, and fought for those she believed were being ignored. The work also seemed to reshape how people understood Audie Murphy's story. Veterans who met Pamela often recognized familiar suffering in the stories surrounding her husband. To them, Murphy no longer represented only medals, movies, and heroic headlines. He became a symbol of emotional wounds carried silently by many soldiers after the war ended. Pamela's honesty about his struggles helped expose a reality America had spent years avoiding. By the time Pamela Murphy died in 2010, public memory surrounding Audie Murphy had become far more complicated than before. He remained one of America's most celebrated war heroes, but his story now carried another meaning alongside the legend. Through Pamela's loyalty, sacrifice, and quiet strength, the conversation slowly shifted from fame and heroism toward something far more uncomfortable. It forced people to confront whether America truly honored its heroes or simply admired them until their hidden suffering became too difficult to face openly. The unanswered questions surrounding him remained. So, what do you think? Did America protect Audie Murphy's heroic image while ignoring the pain destroying him behind closed doors? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold historical stories.